Hello, testing the mic. Hello. I see that Curry has sent some people. That's always good. How can you guys hear me? Is the mic okay? Hello, Curry. Wanted to check this before I switch it over because we are looking different today. Also finishing setting up my Twitch. Okay, I think we're good. I'm gonna switch it over. And here we go. All right. Yep. Okay. Camera's looking all right. Hello. Welcome back to another week of streams. This is my last week before my school starts, so very exciting and also big meh. Not ready to go back. But as you can see here, we have shifted the layout. We are actually inside of my airbrush booth right now, and so today we will be applying primer to our figure that we have been working on for the past 20 hours. It has been that long already, but we are finally ready to prime and see how all of our hard work went. And after the priming, we will check the pieces and sand down more stuff if needed and go from there. So this is technically the last step before painting. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I guess as wrap up, so all of the pieces that I have right now are on my desk. They're kind of on these little alligator clips. And so they're just all like this, and so this is how we'll be spraying them. I have my airbrush over here. I've switched it, so basically I'll be spraying. You guys will be able to see the piece, but you won't see my hand in the way because I think the past two streams I had the camera on the other side, and I didn't like it. It blocks everything. I've also kind of tried to make the camera so it focuses like right in the middle here. And so I'll be trying to keep the piece there, that way you guys will be able to continuously have a clear view of what I'm doing, although I will only be like applying white to it, so there's not going to be a lot of action today, but still I figured this is a good kind of primer, for what is to come and to see if this works out. It's a good angle, okay, that's good. But yeah, so kind of a brief introduction if you guys are new to these videos, or just the process in general. I will be priming with Tamiya Liquid Surface Primer White, and so this is a primer by Tamiya brand, and they also make gray, but I typically use white on my models. I just find that it works really so much better for anime garage kits. Because a lot of the colors are really bright or white, etc. So we'll be using this. I already have a whole bunch of it thinned out actually, so I made a little container full so that way we don't have to mix a lot beforehand. I hope this is enough to get us through the whole kit, but I'm not 100% sure. Just kind of depends. A little goes a long way with this stuff, so we'll be using that. Other random things, I've got my cup of thinner back there as I'm pointing to it, and so we'll be cleaning the airbrush a lot in between to make sure that it sprays correctly and that there's not really any issues with sputtering or going too thin, going too thick. Other random things, I have a black cardstock or like thick paper here. This is just really useful for making sure that my primer is thinned correctly, and so you can see if it's like spluttering a lot, we might be having issues. You really want it to be just like nice and thin and kind of looking like that. And so yeah, this is here for test purposes. I'll be spraying on that as well. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, I'll be using my Iwata. So this is my main brush. This is an HPC Plus from Iwata. It is a 0.3mm nozzle and needle, and so it can cover a variety of detail work as well as large areas. We won't be using any of my other brushes here. I also have a 0.5 that I use. This is just kind of a junk brush that I got from Amazon. but it has a 0.5 needle, and you can also use a 0.5 needle for priming. So 0.5, 0.3, both of those will work really well for priming your models. I don't recommend going down lower than that because then you're getting into the detail work and really small needle size. So I think that's it. Majority of these, again, will be on alligator clips, but there's two tiny pieces, these little frills, that won't be on the clip. I'll have to put on some tape or something. Oh, and another really important thing, actually two important things. I keep thinking of things. So number one, most important, is that when I am airbrushing, I will be muting myself and the entire stream basically, except for the music. Because the airbrush booth itself is extremely loud. We're talking like as loud as a vacuum cleaner, and so it's like impossible to hear me or anything over it. And so in between I'll be taking breaks and answering questions and unmuting myself. But when this airbrush booth is on, so when it's really bright, I will be muting myself. So if anyone comes in and is wondering why the stream is muted, I'm counting on chatters to kind of help out if possible to talk about it, and then, or I can just unmute myself and do it. Okay, and the last thing before we get started, because this one was kind of important, is I did go ahead and I bonded like every single piece and I got them all prepped, but there was this piece in particular, so her china dress here, which had to have some epoxy repairs, and so I think last time I mentioned, let's see if I can get it, that this was kind of broken, so it was broken and it came that way, and so I went ahead and I epoxy puttied it. You can see here, this yellow stuff is the putty, and now it's completely rounded again, and it looks like a dress. And same here, these sides here, so these sides were basically not fitting correctly, and they didn't fit flush. Sorry, I'm turning around to make sure my camera's okay. But they weren't fitting flush, and so now they do. So that was the last thing. I just wanted to clear that up, because also they were sitting over here and they weren't on clips. So let me clip these really quick, and then we will get started. Alright. So I already did all of the other putting stuff on clips. And that's basically it. We're just putting it on clips and setting it to the side. And there's no particular order I'm going to go in for this. I'm just gonna do it and spray it, and hopefully it's all good. A couple of pieces have two at a time on the alligator clip, for example, their little bows here. And so these are attached with magnets, not brass wire, and so I'll just be spraying them like this. So I think that's it now. So let's get started. I already have my airbrush on, so obviously you want to turn your airbrush on. Usually what I do when I'm ready to start is I take a little bit of thinner, and so I have some thinner in my cup, and I just kind of spray it onto the paper towel just to make sure that my needle and everything are working properly, because I've had cases where, like, prior to me starting, it hasn't fit correctly, and so I've had to take it from my airbrush and make sure everything is unstuck and cleaned out. And so it looks good. We're pretty much ready to start. I'm going to put on a glove to hold my pieces like so, and then I also have my ventilator on, because you're going to need a fume mask for this. We don't want to be breathing those volatile organics, and so this is just something to do with safety. I also have a window open. I have a fan going a little bit in the back, and once this booth turns on, it's going to pull in all the dust this way, and then it's going to go out immediately. So really, when you're airbrushing, you want to make sure that you're not accumulating those odors in the room. Alright, so I'm going to put my brush on, or my mask on. Cool. And let's get this. So shake up the cone. Should be mixed. I use basically 1 part primer to 3 parts thinner, so that seems to be working for me. I have some droppers here, and I'm just gonna take a 1 or 2 dropper full of the primer, put it in, and we're ready to go. So let me put this off so you guys can hear me one last time. I will be spraying basically around 20 psi to do this. It's kind of a sweet spot for my compressor and my airbrush. But anywhere between 15 to 20 is usually what you want to aim for when you're airbrushing. You can even go down to 10 to 15 for kind of smaller detail stuff, but usually 15 to 20 psi is good. Okay. Alright, it's on. I'm going to turn my airbrush on. Compressor on. Alright, compressor is now going at 15, actually about 20 psi. You can check it here. Spray is good, and the pattern looks good. So I'm going to turn on the boost. Oh, dang it, sorry. Okay. Basically I was just saying that my compressor is at 15 to 20 psi, and I put in my primer and I just sprayed it here and it looks good. Hey, thank you so much, Anna. I'm so glad you can make it. Everybody, this is Anna. I have known her for years. I am so happy that you're here to watch me. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, like, this is the one stream where I won't be talking a lot. I'm just going to be spraying, but hopefully it will be relaxing and you can listen to some music. So, also I'm like lifting my mask right up above my head. Sorry, I'm very happy right now. Alright, so I'm going to mute myself when this is going just because like my airbrush boost is basically as loud as a vacuum cleaner, so it's not fun. Okay, good. That's awesome. This is the perfect stream to work in, so I'm happy to have you. Alright, enough, I've talked for like 10 minutes, so I'm going to get this going. Alright. Right now, I'm going to turn this off. So what I'm going to do right now, I just sprayed a little bit, and it looks like my primer mixture is a little bit too thinned, and so I'm going to add another dropper full of my surface primer. That way it'll cover a little bit more, and it will go on a little bit thicker. So this is just something that you can kind of tweak your mixture if you notice it's looking too thin or too thick. You can add thinner or add more primer depending on what you need. The same goes with paint. It's just kind of, you get to know your airbrush, and then over time, you know, you kind of work with it and your paint mixtures. Also depends on the weather, because sometimes it's really humid, sometimes it's like not so humid, so Let's see how this one goes. I just added another dropper full of primer. Also, I do have, I'm using, I have some other drops here. I'm using some Mr. Color Leveling Thinner, and so this stuff takes a little bit longer to dry, but it does like really smooth out your paint coat or your primer that you're putting on, and so sometimes a little bit of this goes a long way too. I think I added more of that in this mixture, and that's possibly why it was going on a little bit thinner. All right, let's get back to it. just a brief like hi again. I'm gonna give you some more primer, and then I want to show you guys the top of the head because that was the one that had a lot of problems, and priming really blurs all of that putty that we spent all that time putting together. So you want to be careful after you've just sprayed like pieces, but with lacquer primer, just give it a couple minutes and it'll kind of settle. So let's see if I can focus it on this. It might be a little hard. But do you guys remember all of those holes that were in the head? There were like a bunch of really big holes. They're basically all gone at this point, and so the model looks totally smooth. I don't really see any huge areas that we missed. There's like one area here, one bubble that kind of pops up. You can kind of see the shadow of it, but we'll reevaluate later because this primer is still drying. But overall, I'm really happy with how this looks so far. The model is looking really smooth, and all of that hard work we spent filling in all of those gaps, I can barely even see these holes now. So that's awesome. And so we're just gonna keep going, and I probably won't stop to chat for a little bit unless I get a lot of comments or if I'm running out of like primer. And so yeah, we'll try to go through all of them. I don't know if this will take the full 2 hours, so I prepared a backup thing just in case. But yeah, next we're gonna focus on stuff like the face, which has some areas that I actually did have to go in and correct. So you can see some marks on her eyeball. I had to fix all those. Hey, how you doing, Rebel Star? You caught us at a good time. I was right at like an intermission before I start priming again. So today is prime day. We're just going to be priming, and I will be muted most of the time, but hopefully you guys can at least see the techniques that I'm using and that sort of thing. I promise it'll look really much more exciting once paint goes on, but white primer on white kit is not that exciting. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Realized I had a week left of school, or until school starts, so that's not great, but doing the best with what I can. All right, so I'm gonna get started. Let's put this mask back on. And get going. Alright, I'm back. Well, I'm back. I'm like super muffled under my mask. Thank you, Rebel Star, for letting me know that. I'll do that right now. I'm gonna clean out my airbrush really quick just because we've been a couple batches through the primer at this point, and I want to make sure it doesn't stay too clogged. And so when I'm giving it a quick rinse, actually let me take my mask off right now. Sorry guys for just coming in if I was muted. As I've been saying, I'll be muted when I'm airbrushing. I will be cleaning my airbrush in between. When I give it a quick rinse, basically I just spray everything into a paper towel and kind of use the paper towel to clean it out. Since this has been a few of them, I'm actually going to disassemble my airbrush real quick and just give it another quick clean through. So, put a little bit of thinner in it, I unscrew it, and pull out the needle. I kind of put the needle back and forth, and then spray into the paper towel, clean off the needle, and then disassemble the nozzle. Nozzle is usually two parts, so you have like an open bit and then kind of the area where the needle fits through. And you can see here it gets clogged, and so there's a little bit inside of here as well. So we're gonna wipe all of that off. This just happens when you're spraying. If your mixture isn't 100% perfect, it'll kind of accumulate. If you spray like a lot over time, it will also accumulate. So I just like to make sure that everything is clean. If you take good care of your tools, they will take good care of you. And because of this, I've never had an issue with this airbrush, and I've used it for over 5 years now. I've never needed to replace the needle on the seawater. So they're very durable. You just have to know how to clean it and be careful in handling it, because the needles can break, or at least bend. Sometimes break too. Alright, so I just kind of filter a little bit more through it. My compressor's still on, you guys can hear it. And then just reassemble everything. And that should clean it out. So it should spray well now. But again, I just put a little tiny bit of thinner in it. Spray it through. means maybe my needle wasn't tight enough or it got jammed. It's a little bit sticky, so this is why I always check. If you put paint in it right away, then you're gonna get paint that doesn't spray through, and it'll just be annoying. There you go. Alright. Alternatively, if you don't feel like spraying into a paper towel, I actually do have a cleaning pot here, but I seem to use this more as a mount for my airbrush than I do as like an actual pot to spray into. You're still spraying like volatiles when you spray into a paper towel, so it's best to kind of, try to avoid doing that when you can. So yeah, we've finished about 2 rows now. We got mostly bigger pieces left, but you can see that the primer is going on really nice and white, and all those dots on her head are almost gone, but there's actually a couple that I did find on this piece still. I can see them, and so we're going to need to do a little bit more cleanup on some of these, but for the most part, everything's looking really nice and clean and is thinning out onto the model nicely. So I know it's hard to tell. Okay, there was one other thing I was going to do, and now I completely forgot. Oh, change my name, because Robostar was kind enough to point it out. Actually, I might not even be able to do that right now. It might be embedded in. Actually, I don't think so. Oh, I do have it. Socials. Let's see if I can change it right this moment. I decided to do a name change on Instagram for those interested, because for the longest time my username was just like for my private Instagram, and then it kind of changed into whatever I'm doing now. I used to have a lot more personal stuff, and now it's just models, so figured it was time for a change. Alright, so let's keep going. I'm gonna work on a mixture of small and big, just whatever I lined them up as. Actually, we'll put my primer in first. Alright, gonna put my mask on and then let's get going. Alright, I'm gonna do a quick cleanup and then I need to move and adjust a couple of pieces. There's mainly a few tiny small ones left, and so I have to put some on tape. And then I had a bunch of them on a brass wire, but they're kind of shuffling everywhere, and so I'm gonna adjust my setup a little bit before we do the final bit of spraying. Pretty nice and easy. There's you know, not too many parts to this kit, but they all spray on pretty quickly because it is so small, so we're nearly done with the priming. And then after that, I can take a look at some of the pieces, but I'm hesitant on starting to sand them down because I really want to give this primer a chance to cure. Even though it's dried, it doesn't necessarily mean it's cured, as in it's fully dried out completely. A lot of paint takes, at least a couple hours. It also probably looks like we're applying this really thickly, but the layers I'm putting on are pretty thin, so there's really not too much action happening. It sands down pretty easy. Alright, let me throw this to the way and get some tape. That's right here. So I just have my regular yellow Tamiya tape. This is what I use for masking, but I also use it for random things like figures and taping. Okay. You may have also noticed me putting this piece kind of to the side. I haven't painted it yet, but I was trying to make it so I could get it to be a little more stable. Oops, well, now I'm doomed. These magnets are, there we go, pretty stuck. Okay, that one will work. This is why I did all of this beforehand, so you guys wouldn't have to see me struggle on stream. There we go. Okay, so we'll get that one going. I need to make a new pile of things, like a new. Okay. I'm rearranging stuff on my desk right now, so I know which ones to spray next. Okay. Ooh, that's close. And so we have these little small ones, and we also have this. So this is just a bunch of them that were on a brass wire, but it's not working for me, so I'm gonna figure something else out. I think I'm gonna put it on the tape. Take off my board for a sec. Okay. So easy way to do this is to take a piece of tape and take a toothpick and wrap the tape around the toothpick, and then you can just stick the pieces on the paper like that. And then the tape is tacky enough that it shouldn't, when you're blowing, they shouldn't come off. So it will look something like this. This tape is a little bit short, so maybe I'll just make one for each of them. Sometimes I just use one toothpick as well. The only bad thing about this is that any area that is covered by this tape, obviously you won't be able to prime it, and so usually what I have to do is kind of go over it twice, the piece twice. Okay, so we'll do that, and let's do that for this cherry blossom as well. Painter's tape will also work for this, and it's a little bit larger than the Tamiya, so I recommend that as well. But yeah, you can see it just sticks on it, so you can basically spray all of one side and some of the surfaces. Okay, the other way to do this is to maybe bend it. I'll try it, but I can see my pieces flying off. That is definitely a threat. I've had it happen a couple of times, but it's not too bad. Most of the time, you'll see them, or they won't fly off. It all depends on the stickiness of your tape. Okay, this will work. If I make like a hook, just like that. There we go. And I'm gonna cut this wire in half and use 2 clips then. So the reason that we're doing this is because these are her hair pieces and there are no connection points or magnets or anything that these go through. So they just drill straight through and they fit in her hair, so. Okay. That back. Okay, I think that's it, but I do need to grab another alligator clip. So now you can see it will hold itself, and it's fine. Even if it slides down a bit, that's fine. You can also angle it like that. Okay, so you put this on. And grab another alligator clip. Okay, and then I think we're good. This one is a little bit easier to fall off. That will work. Let's even move this a little bit closer. There we go. We'll just have to adjust it later, but at least I can get most of the side here. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, and then these little ones left. So really not too much at all. Okay, I'm just gonna leave these in my bench area anyway. And I'm gonna grab a little more thinner. And I think we are good to go. This will be the last spray for now. Unless I feel like we need to go over another area again. But most of the time when I'm doing this like first coat, I try to go somewhat thin. I don't spray like crazy because a lot of times you need to do some putty fill in and some additional minor repairs, and so that way you can sand it down easy and then you don't have to have these big gunky primer layers. So really when we're doing the second coat, that will be a lot thicker. Maybe not too thick, but enough to cover all of it. Let's see, I definitely need to get some alligator clips. They look useful. Yeah, I highly recommend them for numerous reasons, mostly to hold your parts. What I did is I literally just Googled like buy alligator clips, and Amazon has packs of, like 50, 100, there's tons of them. And so I bought alligator clips, I bought bamboo skewers, and I used electric tape to tie them together. And so really that's all it is. You can make your own, super easy. The ones that are, you know, ready-made like this, they're pretty marked up and you don't get a lot. And so I have enough of these to last me a lifetime. Like seriously, I've been using these, just this, like the whole thing, for already a couple years, and besides the tape kind of like peeling a little bit, I haven't had any issues with them at all. And you can clean off your clips with thinner or whatever you choose, and so they just last a long time. So either buy your own or make your own. They're really helpful to have. As for like the little holder, you know, to put your clips in, you can buy a pre-made thing that's made out of corrugated cardboard. There's hobby brand ones, but I just have a piece of wood that I drilled a ton of holes into. I space them in a very particular way because I build the same scale of kit pretty much consistently, and so all the pieces that I have, they're, you know, I can fit, you know, at least the whole kit on this whole piece of wood. So it's all about finding out what works for you, you know. If you got more funds to spend on hobby brand stuff, that's cool too. Alright, let's do the final bit and then see where we're at in terms of time, but we probably have like, you know, 30-40 minutes to do random stuff after. So I have a kit we can maybe work on in the meantime. We'll see. Alright, putting the mask on. Still have sound on. I know you guys can't understand me, but alright, let's do listening to me. Thank you for your patience while I finish priming. Pretty much sprayed all the pieces at this point, so we are, as far as I know, done with primer tonight. I'm going to clean out my airbrush and then we will take a look at some of the pieces, and with the remainder of our time, I figured I'd just pull out a random kit and do some sanding and work on some stuff. This is one I'm probably going to build on stream someday. It's not very complex, so we'll be able to do a lot of the prep. But this is kind of a one-off event since we won't have, you know, too much downtime in between after stuff. So once we get to painting, you know, there's only so much you can do. Okay, so we're going to do a deep clean of the brush. At this point, I will not be muting myself anymore, so feel free to chat, feel free to do whatever, because I will be here. You can see cleaning it removes random gunk sometimes, so it's good to just keep it clean. I was also using it earlier this evening, so that's probably why there's some random stuff. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it with primer. Basically, you just want to apply, you know, some thin layers, let them settle, take a look and see how your kit looks. Ideally, you know, your prime job is good and your putty job is good, and so you won't need to do too much, but for most kits, I end up having to prime around 2 or 3 times, because the first time you find all the stuff that you missed, and then you go and you sand it down, and then once that's all fixed, there's just less and less each time, so. I can actually move my mic down a little bit more too after I clean this up. I'm just very meticulous about making sure that my brush is clean in between colors and everything else. Okay. That's good. And now we're going to clean the cap, which is also pretty gross. Sometimes I just drip primer right on, or thinner right onto it, soak it up. I do go through quite a bit of paper towels when I'm doing all of this, so try to use every bit of the paper towel and get it really nasty before throwing it out. Okay. That's pretty good. It doesn't have to be spotless, just clean enough that you won't be taking primer and putting it into your next layer. Alright, so let's throw away some of this stuff. I'm actually going to dump my excess thinner out because I don't want it to be evaporating and getting smelly while I'm sitting here. And we'll close this up. Okay, so let's take a quick look at some of the pieces because I actually haven't looked at them yet. And I'm just going to pull a couple off for a quick inspection. So I'm going to look at it really close and then I'll put it towards the camera just to kind of see. The primer is thinned out exactly how I want it to be, but especially for this face, there's a couple of holes. Oh, this is going to be really hard to see. Yeah, so you can see some of the primer here, and the holes that they're not totally white yet, because we did put on a thin layer, but there's a couple of holes here that I'm going to need to drill out and fill in, just additional micro holes that were missed. So that's piece. Let's take a look at some of the other really bad ones. But you can see the primer coating is nice and white, and so the model was completely covered in, you know, all of our Bondo and stuff before, and all the holes, but now it's not there at all. Okay, this one's pretty good. Oh yeah, there was a little random here. There we go. Okay, there was also a scratch I saw on her butt. I don't know how that happened or if I did it. I don't think I'm gonna bother fixing it because her dress will cover it up anyway. Just stuff to be aware of that can bring it out. Let's take a look at the top of the hair. Oh, what's going on? Why is my screen all white? That's weird. I'm gonna turn off my camera and turn it back on. That was really weird. I'm sorry. I turned around and it was completely white. But I can see it now, so hopefully you guys can too. Okay, this piece came out pretty great. There were so many holes that we had to fill in, and I can barely see anything now. Another coat of primer will cover up most of these, and we will just be able to prime this almost immediately. Or paint it. Oops. And I just dropped it. Seems like not too much was lost though. It was only for a second or two. Okay, good. So I turned around at the right moment then. Another thing that we'll need to be doing in between the primer layers is sanding it down with a very high grit. Usually I go about 1200 to 1500, and that will sand off any tiny leftover fuzzies that, you know, somehow got stuck from the primer. A lot of times when you prime, if you prime too high of a PSI, you can leave some like dust. It's like fuzzy dust because the paint is hitting the kit too fast, and so it's ending up with this kind of like texture on it. And so a good thing to do is to sand it down with a higher grit. This one looks pretty great too. Really, all of that prep work that we did has been super instrumental in making sure that the surface comes out smooth. And let's look at one more piece. I wanted to look at the front of that little dress. This has been an intense piece. Alright. This came out pretty good as well. There are a little bit of scratches that I might buff down. But you can see the corner of the dress came out really great. You can't even tell it was chipped before. There's just that slight discoloration. What grit do you use to sand the primer? I use roughly 1200 to 1500 typically to sand primer. Sometimes I go down to 800, but you're really starting to scratch it off at that grit. And so I use 1000 and up is a safe bet. I know a lot of Japanese modelers do that too. They do 1000 up. So that's my recommendation. That's enough to smooth the primer down, but not remove it immediately. If you want to remove it, you can, you know, buff it out a little bit more with the 1200 and all of that. Alright, so this looks pretty good. I'm going to let these sit for, you know, a couple hours, and then in terms of Thursday stream, I think what we'll do is I will just let this primer sit until then, and I'll have the camera on the other area. Whoa, something fell. I'll have the camera on the other area so we can fix all those flaws and sand it all down. And then if we have time in that stream, I'll switch the airbrush setup to this one, and then we can apply the second round of primer. We're very rapidly approaching the painting stage, so we're going to need to get some spoons out and start figuring out color schemes and stuff for this kit, which is shocking. I didn't think we would be here this soon, but we are. So with that, that will conclude priming, and so for the next like 40-ish minutes, I'm just going to be working on something random. I don't even have it under current projects because it's kind of a one-off, but I have this tiny Miku. I think I showed her off during a like loot stream. So I have this one, this little Miku, and so I'm going to be just kind of pulling her pieces out and working on her, doing some random sanding and stuff. So feel free to stick around if you so wish. I'm not going to change the stream setup or anything. I'm just going to work directly into this booth, and so, you know, not too much to do here. But that's good. Just kind of a brief intermission in between projects. Actually curious how the stream will fare. Yeah, she's a cutie. She's very small. Well, actually, a piece just broke off. So all of the pieces fit inside of this bag here. This is her entire body. Just sits on my whole finger. So she's very, very small. Not too much going on in terms of like complexity. So she'll be a really easy job. Here's her face. That's her whole face. Very small. That is also my cat. I don't know if you guys can hear him. What are you doing, Rocket? Crazy. Alright, so let me just see. Oh, I have some photos downstairs. So, this will be using my X-Acto knife for this time. And I actually don't know how this will fare with my hand possibly in the way. So we'll see. Hey, how are you doing, Kari? Yeah, this one is an old one. I bought this not too long ago off Mandarake, but she is quite old when it comes down to it. This is a kit by Tora Brindle, the sculptor of this. Let's grab some 400 as well. So the cast is actually quite nice on this. There's just a couple of tabs, and then the seam line is really faint, so we're kind of blessed here. I expected this one wouldn't have too much prep, but I figured I wanted something really quick to build this year too, and I'm gonna need this kit when school starts in a week, because I anticipate it being a very busy semester. So it'll be nice to say I finished something during that time. Let me see if I can turn my light up a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that doesn't impact you guys too much, but I couldn't see the seam line, so. I also purchased a new and exciting tool, which I may or may not use on this stream to help with sanding. It is sadly not the Artima 5, but I'm curious to give it a go and see. You might be able to just use an 800 on these seam lines. The nice thing about these Chibi Miku kits too is that you can paint them in any hair color you desire. It doesn't have to be that traditional kind of bluish color. Miku has so many iterations that, you know, can just go crazy. I was thinking I might even paint her like the Sakura Miku one, but I don't know if I feel like getting that elaborate. I kind of like her bluish green hair, so. Yes, Rocket. Rocket ran away. So yeah, kind of an unexpected thing to pop up, I know, but sometimes that's just how it be. A lot of modelers typically have a couple projects going on their workbench at a time. Lower my mic too, so you guys can hear me a little better. Hopefully that's a little bit louder. But yeah, so most modelers have a couple of projects going on at a time on their workbench, and so this is not untypical. Atypical, you may say. pretty nice. Very mild seam line. That's what I like to see. Kit quality on this, despite being smaller, is better than the one that we are working on. So, it does not matter what scale it is, how complex, sometimes the cast is just, they vary. Nice synth wave going on here. I don't know if this is themed for Little Bird, but still not too bad. Feel roughness. That's because I'm on the wrong side. I'm sorry for the weird angle this time. Normally I would have it, you know, how we always have it, and it would be kind of too much work at this point in the game to change everything, because it'd take me like 10 minutes to set up everything again. But you can kind of see here, hopefully, yeah, there's a seam line that runs straight across here. Try to get real close. There we go. So, eliminating that. The angle's fine? Okay, good. I think because it's on the right side, it's actually kind of better for now, because usually, you know, I'm left-handed, and so it would be really bad if it was on the other side. This kit honestly looks like one that we could get sanded in only a couple hours, because she's so small. There's not too much to do here, so an exciting prospect. But yeah, I hope everyone is doing fine and is enjoying their week. Can't wait for January to be over. It always feels like the gloomiest month, just because it's after the holidays and it's dark and you gotta go back to work and school and nothing nice happens. It's often cold unless you're, you know, on the southern hemisphere. Oh, I see. There's some leftover Bondo dust that got on this. It's like, I'm not Bondoing this yet. What's happening? Okay. Yeah, this is a beautiful model. Barely anything needed on this. I'm just kind of going back and forth with a 400 and an 800. That's what I'm sanding with now. 400 is to get off the bulk of the seam line, and then the 800 is to smooth down all of that resin that got roughed up. I know I talk about it all the time, but it's really critical to sand with the higher grits, because otherwise you're going to end up with scratch marks in your job, whether it's on your primer and on your base model, etc. these are so faint, like I don't even see a seam line. So I'm just gonna kind of go up and down. Yeah, I barely see anything, man. So there is this kind of tab here, and it looks like, okay, so there's kind of a notch in the kit, and I'm pretty sure that's where her little hairband fits in, right here. So what I want to do is kind of get this if I can. I wish I had my clippers. I do not. There we go. This resin is actually a little bit tough, so it's easy to sand, but cutting it, it's a little bit brittle. That should be okay though. Random hair. Rocket hair. And let's get this area that I cut sanded down. Don't need to do too much more to that. Go. There are a couple of chunks slash just a very few bubbles right where her hairband kind of, or her, I don't know what this is. It's not her twin tail, it's like the connecting bow, hair clip, whatever, fits in. But other than that, the piece is fine. Try to smooth this out and then okay, there we go. That was good. Okay. And the piece still looks rounded to me, so that's good. I'm gonna briefly, just very quickly rub this with a 1200 grit. Further smoothing it down, especially because this didn't really have any bubbles or anything that I saw, so this will show off any seam line I missed. Sanding and polishing is also a good way to remove mold release before soaking your kit. So oftentimes I just go over it with some sandpaper. But yeah, that looks pretty good. Oh, there's a little bit of a line here I missed. I love how I say it looks good, and then I gotta repair it. There we go. Yep, that's good. That looks good. A little bit here. Okay, so this piece is pretty much done already, and it will fit into her little tiny bowl head once it's done. It's kind of weird. Oh, that's the back of her head. I was like, why is Miku wearing a helmet? That didn't make any sense. So yeah, it will fit kind of like this. Like so. She kind of does have this bowl head going on, but you know. Okay, so let's do the other large piece while I've got you guys. And that will probably be all we do. So this one, same situation. I think it's got this really nice thin seam line. There is also on the side of her head, it has the copyright information. I don't know if that will be visible on this. Probably not. But it says Chan X Co. Krypton Future Media Inc. And so the Chanko is the style of the Miku. It's basically an illustrator that does Miku in this type of style. Unrelated to Tora Brindle, but it's got the thing. Actually, it's right here. So it's this one, but it's along her hairband. Or, sorry, her twin tail. Oh my god. I can talk. I already see a couple bubbles here. Let's see if it will focus. So they're right inside of here. You can kind of see it. But overall really minor, not a big deal. So let's cut these off. All of them as much as I can. The copyright stuff is really interesting because some kids do it, some don't. And usually it's on a base. It's not like on the actual figure because that kind of distracts from it. But this one doesn't really have a big base, and so it doesn't really come with a base at all actually. It just comes with like this little straw or something. And so, oh, I guess it does come with a base. It comes with a top and a bottom, and then this little straw thing we put in the middle. So, wow, this is a tough resin. There we go. Got that tab off nice and clean. Can barely see it now. Well, can't see it because it's all nice and blurry. Okay, so let's start at the top, and then we'll work our way around again. And we'll end at the rounded point at the top of her twin tail. Oh, I like this kit. Now I'm like ready to just prep another one. Not finish painting the other one. With due time, I guess. Get a little bit more shaved off here. There we go. Don't want to dig too far in though, because then yeah, kind of ruin the shape of the kit. Tend to rotate the piece a lot depending on where I see the seam line. I wonder if I still have my old Miku paint recipe, because I did paint that Buddha Miku, and I really liked how her hair color came out, but I think that was before I started using my color book for all my paint mixtures, so I might have to develop a new one to continue this. Something's going on here. I'm not sure if that's a bubble or a hole, but there's a little, it's like just a slight deformation. me get another. Actually, I think we can keep using this for a bit. Okay, yeah, I need another 800. Let's see what I got going on in here. Oh yeah, I have all my flexible one. I'll just cut one. Yeah, keep that there for a reason. Okay. The flexible one's actually a great choice for this kit. There's a lot of rounded pieces. Okay, let's see along here. Looks good to me, so let's focus on the bottom now. I think we'll finish up this twin tail tonight. I don't know how long it will take, but that would be a good place to stop. Again, kind of random, but usually priming doesn't actually take that long. I think it would have taken a lot longer if I would have had to mix the primer, because usually I factor that in, but because I had pre-made it already, we saved us some time. Yeah, have a good one, Rebel Star. I hope to see you too. It will be on Thursday, so feel free to stop by. You are always welcome. Yeah, have a good night, bro. Okay, this one is pretty good. The side, or at least the underside. I think these, once they're on the kit and the whole thing is assembled, they kind of drag against the floor, so that's why the bottom here is so flat. Okay, and so this side has the logo and everything, so I'm not quite sure if I should, to what extent I should bother with this, but the C-line still runs along it, so I want to make sure that that's gone. I like it when the logo's on stuff too, so probably will try to avoid sanding off the whole logo. Looks like I can manage it. Attack it from this angle. Yeah, that was actually pretty good. So kind of sand it on the side. There are, oh, actually no. I thought that was a bubble. It looks like it's just part of the name. Kind of fills in with some dust as we go, so it looks like something else. Okay, let's roll it up. it wasn't dropping all this stuff when we were priming. That would have been fun. Although that one side piece of the dress kept, like the magnets weren't sticking to it well, and so it's kind of going all over the place. That's why I had to end up holding it. Okay, just the top now. Do the last bit of polishing. There's a couple bubbles, yeah. Unfortunately, this piece is not quite as well cast as the other one. There's a few noticeable bubbles, but gosh, nowhere near what we were dealing with Mero-chan. And no micro bubbles on this either, so that I saw. It can always pop up, but okay. It's a weird thing that's like stuck in the resin, but it doesn't look like it's impacting the it gets embedded in it, but it won't affect how the cast looks when we prime it. Okay, a little bit of something there. Let me smooth this out. Just a very minor dent. There's actually one here too. Oh, now I see all the micro holes. Okay, I misspoke, but overall looks good. Alright, so I think that's where I'm going to end tonight. I know this got kind of weird at the end. Pulled out a weird kit. But hopefully you've enjoyed priming, and next time we will be sanding down the primer and puttying all the leftover holes and things that the primer noticed. That's the point of primer, is you know, besides painting the model and providing a surface for it to stick to, it also points out all the stuff that we missed. So we'll be looking at that, and that will be on Thursday, so the 20th of January. Thank you so much for tuning into this stream. Yeah, have a good night, Kari Kari, and I hope to see you guys next time.